At the T-minus 3-minute mark, tape recorders on board the spacecraft were turned on. These recorders record both voice and data. We have ignition sequence start. The engine's now building up to 7.7 million pounds of thrust. We have a launch commit and we have a liftoff. Moving back. The Saturn V lifting off with power.
This is WOMMLP operating out of Burlington, Vermont, 105.9 The Radiator. Good evening, it's the Rocket Shop. I'm your host, Tom Proctor, back from a long break. And with me tonight is John Daly. Hello.
How are you?
I'm very good, very happy to be back in the studio. So thank you so much for being our first guest.
Of course.
In a, I was going to say post-COVID era, but I think we're just in a COVID era.
Yeah, just in the whatever this new world is.
Yes. Well, thank you for coming into the show tonight. Let's just get right into it. I was doing a little bit of research on you, and you created a concept album from the perspective of Matthew Lyon called Spittin' Lion.
Spittin' Lion, yeah.
Spittin' Lion.
Yeah.
Yeah, just straight off the bat, can you tell me a little bit about this historical figure and what connection it is to you?
So Matthew Lyon is an early congressman from Vermont, 1798. And he's a forgotten founding father who arguably kept this country from becoming an American monarchy in a number of ways. I stumbled across him because there's this thing in Vermont where all the roads are named after where they go. So, I mean, Lake Street, Cemetery Road, Forge Road, Richmond Road goes to Richmond, turn around, it's the Heinsberg Road, and it happens all over the state. And I'm a piano tuner, and I was tuning on State Prison Hollow Road. And I'm sitting here thinking, well, there's no prison on this road. What's the deal? And I vaguely remembered when Bernie launched his 2016 presidential campaign, he cited this congressman who was elected from jail. I was like, oh, that's weird, and it was sticking in my head. And then I remembered when Jim Jeffords stepped down off the Republican Party during the Bush administration, he also cited Matthew Lyon and this congressman elected from jail. So I'm tuning this piano in this really old house on State Prison Hollow Road, and my imagination's going crazy, and I'm thinking, okay, this room used to be a jail cell, and I'm looking out the window, I'm trying to picture some bars on it, and my imagination was going crazy while I was tuning, so I Googled it. I Googled, congressman elected from jail, and it turns out it's Matthew Lyon. And I've been writing songs for like 30 years, so I asked myself, where's the jail cell of Matthew Lyon? And it was like a punch in the face of cadence, like, oh, there's definitely a song there. So I read everything I could when I've been at this since like 2017, and at that point there were 5 books about Matthew Lyon. There's now 7 or 8. So I read everything I could, just absorbing information, and my songwriting is really, once it breaks the surface tension, if it's a 3-minute song, it took me 3 minutes and 20 seconds to write it. The 20 seconds is, where is a pen? And so just sat there absorbing as much information as I could. And all these books, it was like, every chapter was like, are you kidding me? Really? He did this? Like, how come we don't know this guy? And I thought I would be writing a song, maybe 2. Sometimes they come in pairs. And so the surface tension broke, and it was like I was falling on a banquet table. I was like, whoa, that's way more than 2 songs. And it turns out the concept album is 30 songs. And most of them were written in a week-long period of manic insomnia. Like, you know how annoying it is when a song is stuck in your head, and when that song is from a musical, it's particularly annoying. I would have like 4 songs going in my head at once, and a lot of them, when you hear the concept album, I don't have the chops to play that. Like, they're out of my league. So I enlisted my friend Greg. I play in John Daly Band. I play John Daly in John Daly Band. And, I didn't think that this was stuff that people would want to hear in a bar. It was like a very weird angle. So I enlisted my old friend Greg Goldman, like, hey, man, you want to do this weird project with me? And he was game. But then the further I got into the research, the more I realized this is like really insanely relevant to the current world. And there's speeches that Matthew Lyon gave that are as if he's speaking to us today, like bullseye today. So, yeah, I mean, it was a manic process of writing and sending him off to Greg, and then he would send back. It was like Christmas presents, opening up like his track of what he made out of what I sent to him. And then we got to play 2 years ago at the State House for the album release. We released it on Election Day 2018 because it's a weird confluence of politics and music and history. And then we got to play in the Vermont State House. I got my guitarist Dennis from the band to wingman for me because I don't know how to play these. I just wrote them, most of them anyway. But that was great. And then sitting with the material, realized like, okay, the concept album is one thing, but if you really want these characters to tell their own story, there's going to have to be dialogue. And so then it was a process of finding a playwright, finding someone to, jump into this. And again, through piano tuning, I've been tuning for Leslie Becker, who's a local playwright. And first I was just like begging her to help me, like, what do I do with this? We had a couple meetings and tried to flush out, because there's so much in it. It is a heavy lift. And at some point she was like, okay, John, I got it. Just trust me. And I was like, yes. And she's been working on it for like a year and a half, and she should have an honorary history degree for the digging that she has done. And I've gotten to sit through a cold reading of the first draft. She's really polishing the final draft as we speak, and it's awesome. Like, she knocked it out of the park. So really happy with it. We're assembling the production team. COVID has changed everything. Right now we envision kind of an amphitheater, outdoor, hay bales for benches or whatever. Mm-hmm. You can do quite a lot with a minimal stage.
You might set the scene quite nicely as well.
Yeah, and it would really work because that's how a lot of the traveling troops would have done it in the 1790s. But yeah, Matthew Lyon has the distinction, several distinctions, but the only congressman in the history of the United States to win re-election from jail. And so we were talking earlier about State Prison Hollow Road. Well, that turns into the Vergennes Road, and his jail cell was off Green Street, that alleyway off Green Street in Vergennes. Yeah, so the material, I'm super proud of it. And not everything from the concept album makes it to the stage. Leslie, the playwright, really chose the arc, the theatric arc, based on what moves the characters forward. And, playwright it's very different than songwriting, because all I have to do is like pull the pin and throw it and like, whatever, yeah, that's what it means. But she needs every line. The character has a reason for saying it, and they have their own conflict in each character. So I'm so glad she, took this up, because it's great. We could play some of the songs.
I'd love to hear one. Yeah. Have you got one lined up to kick us off?
Sure. So one distinction. This first one's called Tea Time in Beantown, and it's the Boston Tea Party. And so on the concept album's available. The cast album or the musical, you can kind of pick out which ones are in it. But there's no cast album available yet. There will be. But so Tea Time in Beantown actually opens the show. On the concept album, it's like track 8 or something, but she chose different orders for the material based on what worked for the theatric arc. And the character is different, so this is sung by King George. It's not. It's sung by Queen Charlotte on stage, because she was the power behind the throne. And then lyrics have also changed in order to, again, fit the character's motivation, in some cases foreshadowing. So you're going to hear Tea Time in Beantown, but this is the concept album version.
All right. Well, take it away, Bob.
Have you ever been to Boston? They have an attitude problem. They let nothing stop them. It's tea time in Bean Town. It's tea time in Bean Town. Tea time in Bean Town. It's tea time in Bean Town. The only thing worse than a Boston driver is a Boston pedestrian. Tea time in Bean Town. It's tea time in Bean Town. Tea time in Bean Town. It's tea time in Bean Town. French are fighting us everywhere, and the cost is the colonies to bear. It's tea time in Bean Town. It's tea time in Bean Town. Have you a lump or two? Have you one lump or two? We'll go overboard. Have you one lump or two? Tea time in Bean Town. It's tea time in Bean Town. Tea time in Bean Town. It's tea time in Bean Town. Tea time in Bean Town. It's tea time in Bean Town.
Tea Time in Beantown from the concept album Spittin' Leon by
Spittin' Lion.
Spittin' Lion. It just keeps
all right.
keep calling it Spittin' Leon. From John Daly. So how many comparisons have you got from Hamilton at this point? Or is that the- is that
Yeah,
the
we've
go-to?
gotten a lot of the Vermont's Hamilton, and so let's medium-size those expectations. I haven't seen Hamilton. I've heard maybe the first 2 or 3 songs before this even occurred to me to do, but I would never have thought to bother to write a pop colonial album if Lin-Manuel hadn't written Hamilton. It wouldn't have occurred to me. But I want to see it. I'm not ready to see it yet. And there's a lot of overlap. I know that, the characters were like contemporaries. They're pretty high likelihood they met each other. And I know that Hamilton has the election of 1800 in it. We also have that because Matthew Lyon cast the deciding ballot in the contested election of 1800, which gave us President Jefferson. So that would have been, we can't omit that. Lynn had me at Moana, it's like tear-jerking songs on that. So, but someday I'll get to see it. I'm just not ready yet. So,
with the title Spittin' Lion, it sounds like it could end up being like a hip hop musical like Hamilton. So, how did that aside? How did you come up with the idea of the style of music?
So it's rock and roll. It's pop colonial. There's definitely different styles throughout, and again, that's Greg Goldman who did all the orchestration. He's really versatile, and that's an incredible skill set that he has to really flush out these different moods. But the name Spittin' Lion comes from Mr. Lion himself, because he spat in the face of Representative Griswold on the floor of Congress, which led to a fist fight and a caning and old cartoons that you can see on the website. But essentially, Matthew was part of the Green Mountain Boys, and early in his military career, and there's, different historic versions of this. In some cases, they're talking about Ticonderoga. In some cases, they're talking about different time frames. And in some versions, it's just allegations. But we chose the arc that early in his military career, Matthew Lyon was accused of dereliction of duty. And General Gates, who was a Flatlander general, had ordered the Green Mountain Boys to guard a wheat field in Jericho, Vermont. And under pressure of an imminent attack, the Green Mountain Boys were like, hey, we're not here to fight for a New Yorker's wheat field. We're here to fight the Revolutionary War. But he was the commanding officer, so he had to take the fall for it. So he was accused of dereliction of duty and awarded a wooden sword of cowardice. And so he gets to the floor of Congress, and this dirty laundry about the wooden sword comes out. He was like a thorn in the side of the Federalists. So this is a good time to play the song Catamount, which is about the Green Mountain Boys. So again, this is the concept album version, and it's named after the Catamount Tavern, where the Green Mountain Boys kind of plotted all of their stuff. And it's a toast to democratic ideals. So you hit that.
Here's to Ethan Allen, oracle of reason.
Here's to Matthew Lyon and his fiery tongue.
Here's to Chittenden, may he make it home to Williston.
And here's to the Green Mountain Boys. Yes, here's to the Green Mountain Boys.
Here's to liberty, may the flag wave free. To self-government, none above the law.
And here's to the Green Mountain Boys. Yes, here's to the Green Mountain Boys. Here's to legal rights, evenly enforced under no man's rule, but to truth and law. And here's to the Green Mountain Boys. Yes, here's to the Green Mountain Boys. We hereby demand that the truth shall win. We hereby demand a government of citizens,
And do solemnly affirm to protect and defend.
for the freedom to worship as you believe. And here's to the Green Mountain Boys. Yes, here's to the Green Mountain Boys.
To the printing press, say what must be said. To the immigrants, as we welcome them.
And here's to the Green Mountain Boys. Yes, here's to the Green Mountain Boys. Raise your cup for those who have fallen before.
So that song Catamount on Spit and Lion, the concept album about Matthew Lyon, a representative of Congress back in the 1800s.
1798.
1798.
So he gets to Congress, and his first speech on the floor of Congress is to refuse to kneel down in front of President John Adams. And that is a historic fact that President John Adams expected to be greeted on bended knee. And everybody genuflected. Everybody went on bended knee, and then he would say, "Rise and address His Excellency." So Lyon arrives at Congress, having just fought for these democratic ideals of co-equal branches and government of citizens, and no one's above the law, and he refuses to kneel. And the Federalists have the Congress, the Federalists have the Senate, the Federalists have the executive, and they don't like it one bit. And he starts this animosity. That song's called Co-Equal Branches. We're not playing that today, but that's when Lyon refuses to kneel. And so they try to humiliate him. Once he refuses to kneel, they try to humiliate him with the wooden sword, these accusations. That doesn't shut him up. And he's still a thorn in their side. So they decide to jail him. And they pass the Alien and Sedition laws. And basically, Matthew Lyon accused the president of having selfish avarice, requiring foolish pomp and ridiculous adulation. And you can read that whole speech on the history section, but it is eerily similar to the executive of today. And so this song is Alien Sedition, and this is the nearly verbatim the letter of the law.
Okay.
The president has the right to refuse you. The president has the right to refuse you. His Excellency may expel by such alien-born persons that he may judge to be dangerous to his rule. The president has the right to refuse you. The president has the right to refuse you. His Excellency, the President, may imprison any person who shall print or publish against this government. Maliciously, I say to thee, the President has the right to refuse you. The President has the right to refuse you. You intend to disrepute, I refuse you. You intend to stir sedition, I refuse you. By this rightful law, I can imprison those who clearly threaten me or the peace and security. The President has the right to refuse you. The President has the right to refuse you. As I draw my quill upon this legislation, it is no accident, the day of its creation. Happy birthday, Mr. Lyon. The President has the right to refuse you. The President has the right to refuse you.
So you said that was pretty much word for word what the decree was.
Yeah, really close. And the Alien and Sedition laws authorized the president to bar immigrants or expel immigrants and incarcerate the press. And so stuff that Matthew Lyon was saying on his stump speech while he was running for election, stuff that he was printing in his newspaper, was considered sedition. You couldn't speak out against the administration. And his newspaper is amazing. He wrote The Scourge of Aristocracy, and he printed that on a printing press that he purchased from Benjamin Franklin. The typeset letters of Matthew Lyon's printing press were made from melted down bullets of the Revolutionary War. So I defy you to find me a better example of the value of free press than Matthew Lyon's bulletin.
So you're obviously coming from this from a position of admiration for this man, and it's understandable. I mean, he's a Vermont figure who thumbed his nose at federal authority, especially in a time when Vermont was seen as kind of like the redheaded stepchild, if you will, of the states.
Sure, yeah.
And I think to this day, Vermont has that kind of attitude. We're a bit different.
This is probably where it came from.
States. Yeah. So one big criticism of Hamilton, and obviously we're going to have to keep comparing these two because they're very similar, is it very much glosses over some of the some of the more egregious charges of the men of that era.
Right.
Have you kind of mentioned anything like that within the album or within the?
That's
the
a very important part of the theatric arc.
Mm-hmm.
That's not at all excluded. So people are a mosaic, and lots of different ingredients go into making us today and historic figures. So no, we don't ignore that. It is part of the plot that. So Vermont was not part of the original 13.
Mm-hmm.
We're state number 14, and there's different reasons for that. But the real reason for that is because we were the first state to make slavery illegal in 1777. And none of the southern states would vote to allow an abolitionist state into the Union. They would have lost their majority in Congress. And so there was this period where Vermont was a republic, not really by choice, but because we had those values and weren't going to change the Constitution. And at the end of the arc, so Matthew Lyon cast the deciding ballot that gives us President Jefferson, but he spent all of his political capital doing it. They threw him in jail. He started writing from jail. Everything he writes from jail is sedition. They have to sell land to pay the bail. All of his businesses are falling apart because he's not there to attend to them. So he actually cast the deciding ballot for Jefferson and then relocates to Kentucky, which is an enslavement state. And so that facet of his character is not ignored, and it is in fact highlighted by another forgotten founding father named Jeffrey Brace, who wrote an autobiography. Jeffrey Brace wrote the autobiography, The Blind African Slave, which is a brutal accounting of the New England slave trade. And it is only through Jeffrey Brace's autobiography that we know that Matthew Lyon and Jeffrey Brace were neighbors in Connecticut and friends and inspired each other as adults. And so there is a scene, and one of the hidden tracks that the website makes reference to but is not released yet is Brace's song, where he's calling Lyon on this decision to go from the first free state to an enslavement state. And it was the original compromise was, okay, Vermont can join the Union under your terms, but look, we found Tennessee and Kentucky both enslavement states at the same time. And one of the things that Leslie, the playwright, does really well is to confront these intractable issues. And I wouldn't say, insist on one resolution or not, but at least it's right in your face. And so she has both in dialogue and then I have in song this confrontation, and it's really so Lyon offers, hey, let's all move together to Kentucky, and Brace is like, I can't go there. But the actual quote from Jeffrey Brace's book is, I wouldn't want to be jailed for some sort of sedition. And on its surface level, it's like, yeah, I'm not going to Kentucky, get real. On the next level, it's a really nuanced race conversation where, like, okay, Lyon, sure, you were an Irish redemptioneer, but you ran for office and you became a congressman. You got thrown in jail and reelected from office. That's not happening for a black person. And Vermont, yeah, we were the first free state, but free is not equal. And, you read his autobiography, and Brace was bamboozled and lied to and chased off his land. So, that promise, he fought for the Revolutionary War. He fought for the Constitution. He is a forgotten founding father. And that promise was never achieved to this day. But that is what he was fighting for. And so we include that the best we can. Yeah, so again, back to the newspaper, right? So, New York Times, all the news that's fit to print. The header for The Scourge of Aristocracy was a Defoe quote. Nature has left this tincture in the blood, that all men would be tyrants if they could. If they forbear their neighbor to devour, 'tis not for want of will, but want of power. And that warning against consolidated power was the first thing you'd read on The Scourge of Aristocracy. And so that really does sum up Lyon's arc. And I don't want to, spoiler alerts, but no, we don't ignore it. We confront it as best we can without trying to spoon feed any answers, just part of the question. So yeah, that's definitely involved. Back to him being in jail, though, probably the defining characteristic of Matthew Lyon is defiance. He witnessed his father's execution in the Old World. He was from Ireland, And his father was part of the White Boys Rebellion, which basically the King of England came to Ireland and said, "I need to see the paperwork for this land." And the Irish had, hereditary father to son with no paperwork. And the king said, "Oh, no, I found the paperwork. Turns out I own Ireland." And then the White Boys Rebellion, stood up against the monarchy. And the last time Lyon saw his father was when he was publicly hanged. And so it was just part of the grain of his character was to be against consolidated power and against abuse of power. And so this next song is called Ivory Tower. And this one is while he's in jail in Vergennes in the alleyway off Green Street.
All right. Take it away.
Just give me a second. A phone does not like face masks. Now it's decided.
Have enough money, all that power to your head. You got no idea what you're up against. It must be cold in your ivory tower, when no one ever told the truth. Far below in the rising water, no one gives a damn for you. Attack the immigrants, 'cause they don't look like us, and they don't know, my God, what have we become? It must be cold in your ivory tower, when no one ever told the truth. Far below in the rising water, no one gives a damn for you. Must be cold in your ivory tower, when no one ever told the truth. Far below in the rising water, no one gives a damn for you. So let's get one thing straight. What makes our country great is our diversity. I hope you learn to see. It must be cold in your ivory tower, when no one ever told the truth. Far below in the rising water, no one gives a damn for you.
Ivory Tower there by John Daly from his album Spitting Lion. I did happen to notice that the line there is in our country thrives on diversity or something to that effect. And I guess that does kind of take me back to that last question.
Sure.
Would that honestly be Matthew Lyon's personal point of view on the country, or does diversity get explained to mean, generally white diversity, or...
Well, that's a really good question. So we know from Jeffrey Brace's book that they were friends. And without doing too much of a spoiler alert on the theatric arc, Lyon starts to identify with his power, sees himself more as a congressman than anything else. By the end, he's attached to the power. And that's, again, it's like that Defoe quote about, being a tyrant if you could, if not for lack of will, but lack of power. So once he became in a position of power, there's the traitor savior arc. One who is seen as the savior may one day be the traitor. One who is portrayed as the traitor may one day be the savior. So we don't ignore that he moved to Kentucky, and the character of Jeffrey Brace calls him out on it. Will you be legislating against slavery in your new home? And so, no, we don't ignore it, but we can't resolve it. This is what happened.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think it's important to, as an historical play or as an historical album, I think that it's possible to have it there as this is a product of the time, but at the same time, I don't know, I suppose listening to it and hearing diversity, the thing that I think of
Sure.
is the sort of diversity we have in the United States today.
Right.
And I suppose other people listening to it might have that same idea of this is the sort of thing that Matthew Lyon supported in this song or at this time. And as a historian, amateur historian, or semi-professional, I guess, after this album, I'm kind of getting to the point of like, is it important to clarify that at least in the song or in the play itself that diversity for Matthew Lyon meant not slavery rather than actual strength and diversity of black people and brown people and immigrants in the United States?
So the reason he was in jail was because he was an immigrant, and he was speaking out against the administration. So at the time, the caravan of immigrants they were scared of were the Irish and the French. Mm-hmm. And there's another song by his wife, he's in jail, and his wife is basically running his campaign while he's in jail. And she kind of asks those questions about, who's to say you're not next? But the friendship between Brace and Lyon has to be established to be close in order for the audience to feel the loss at the end of the arc when he moves to Kentucky. And yeah, like I don't want to give away too much, but we do our best to confront the hypocrisy. We do our best to hold the white community accountable, and we do our best to play in the key of atonement, which is B major, not B minor, never be diminished. But there is no way around the fact that I'm a white person and I'm telling a black man's story. And at first, when the concept album came out, I just didn't think I could. I would just, this is not my place. It's not my story to tell. The best I can do is remember him. But in essence, that's just whitewashing. That's even worse than telling it as best I can as a white person. And the patient ghost of Jeffrey Brace was like, all right, John, I don't know where you're getting this black and white from, ghost or transparent. How about you tell me how you would feel if a friend did this to you? Just how would you feel if a friend did that? And the song was like, oh, here it is. And so that's a hidden track, and you're right on the pulse of the piece. I mean, this is the learning curve, but we don't resolve it. You, the audience, have to sit with it. Because again, we didn't write this arc. We're just telling you what happened. And the truth is that white America and Irish Americans, we traded the profit for the profit. And that's part of our history. And so to be accountable to that personally and ironically, this will be a performance. So it can't help but be performative. But again, it's like either I say I can't speak for him because I'm white, or I just do the best I can because it would be salt on the wounds to ignore it. It would be whitewashing and insulting. And, like I do love Matthew Lyon. I don't only love Matthew Lyon. But he did go on to win re-election to Congress as a congressman from Kentucky. And just as Jeffrey Brace warned him, I wouldn't want to be jailed for some sort of sedition. Jeffrey was warning him, you're about to betray all of your highest ideals. And Lyon couldn't see it because he was an Irish redemptioneer and, it was good enough for me. And he was gripped on power. He'd given everything. And, you can make an argument he didn't have a choice but to leave Vermont. All of the arrest warrants were still valid. All of the judges were Adams appointees. He was not going to get a moment's peace. His businesses were destroyed. He was broke. They needed to relocate. But his grandchildren fought for the Confederates. So this is part of the accountability. This is part of what we need to see. The part of the vehicle is understanding, like, wow, look at this. This guy kept us from being an American monarchy. He had all of these democratic ideals. And then in the end, yeah, you're right on top of it. And after the interview, I can play you one of the hidden tracks because we try our best not to hold any punches, although I can't help but recognize I'm speaking out of turn, but you can't be silent. I'm not going to be silent about it. I'd rather get it wrong than not try.
So I want to talk a little bit about how you created the album in the first place. And I read that while you were writing it, you did it in full regalia with a quill and under candlelight.
Yeah.
So there's method acting and then there's method writing. Tell me a little bit more about that, about that way that you created this.
So, like I said, my personal writing style, if it's a 4-minute song, it's 4 minutes and 10 seconds to write it, trying to find the pen. And this stuff was just going through my head, like 3 or 4 at a time. And I would grab a pad of paper and I'd be writing the lyrics and singing the melody. I'm like, oh, I like that. And I heard an interview from Sia where she writes to the title. So the record company is like, you know what a really Googled term is? Titanium. I'm like, oh, okay. Here's the song Titanium. So I wrote them to the title. I'd made an arc, and I was like, okay, here he's in jail. Here he votes for Jefferson. Here he's leaving Ireland. And what would these songs be called? And then I wrote them to the title. And it was, sending to Greg really rough chords or straight up a cappella on the phone, and then having him send it back. And it was manic. It was like alarmingly manic. And I knew I was done with that first huge load of them because it was quiet in my head. But toward the end, when it wasn't just like poke, here's a song, poke, here's a song, then I hollowed out a feather, put the pen in there. I was writing by candlelight with tricorn hat, fake musket in the corner. And I didn't want to let Matthew out of the room just yet. I've never, like I said, it was like falling on a banquet table. Like I've encountered songs as a pair, like here's the painting, here's the palette. And like I chose these colors and these shapes and I didn't use these ones. And so it was scary. It was out of control. It had to go. It was a movement. It had to get out,
I mean, did you come to this as a historical reenactor or a historian another way, or is this
straight up songwriting? It was just like, I got to tell this guy's story.
It was a bolt from the blue. There was nothing.
Yeah,
it was
no
really
path to
this.
I mean, like
it was more you were gripped by by the idea and the person himself, and
Right.
you
Right.
just
And
had to get
the
it out
relevance, the crazy relevance of the moment. I mean, when you read what got him in jail, when you read, he wrote this letter, this open letter to John Adams that he published 1 minute after the Adams administration. So he sat there with the printing press and labeled it 12:01 a.m. Like waited just a minute after. Oh, you're not the president anymore. When you read that speech, I could read it for you, but it's now. It's history is 2020. It is right now, and so at first it was really just alarming. Like I'm watching history repeat itself through the current administration and its corruption and abuse of power, and shouting in the wind, like, no, we've done this before. No, we did this before. We've definitely almost been a monarchy before. And I think that getting to hear it, getting to perform parts of it, getting to hear the script, it's like a salve, like okay, we're doing what we can, and theater's political. It's defiant. That song Ivory Tower. If you drive into DC playing that, man, ooh, that feels good. Yeah, I can't wait to share it. We're putting together the team, and the whole drama entourage, and we'll see what COVID allows us to get away with. But the story's been waiting 200 plus years, so we'll let it grow.
So who you gathered so far? Have you got actors that are kind of interested, and have you even had like a read through yet, or is it still very much the early stages?
We've done one cold read through of the first draft, and the script has been polished 2 or 3 times since then. So the way Leslie describes it is, first she figures out what she wants them to say, and then she refines how they will say it. So I'm pretty sure she's done with the last refinement, but it's really her process right now.
Has there been any conflict between the two of you? You said that there's a lot more on the concept album than there will be in the final finished play.
She said, "Trust me," and I'm doing my best to trust her. But it's been a hard process to let go. But she's doing amazing, and it's like she's really put her heart into it, and I love the product, and and I've learned a lot working with her. So I mean, there's conflict because we're all artists, and so we all have our ego. But there's not there's an understanding that we all want this to move forward. We believe in this, really feel the spirit of it, and that it's relevant and important, and that it offers something about the moment that is concise, and that is incisive, and that will help, the way you were talking about, what would Lion mean by diversity. When you're in the modern audience watching, I think it may help you understand, like, oh yeah, we really did betray our neighbor. We really did. I would feel this way if my friend did that to me. So it's personal, and the tension and the hurt and the trauma in the world is cumulative, personal. It comes across as a system, it comes across as a government or as a structure, but it's personal. It's been a lot of personal pain.
With a potential change in administration in November, are you looking to get this out pre-election, or?
We would love to put this out before the election. We would just love to, but it's going to grow at its own pace. So, we got to get the right team. And then if COVID will permit that we're doing amphitheater style, that's what we'll do. But then the weather's going to determine, like, okay, can you really get on stage in October? I don't know. I mean, these autumns have been getting longer and warmer. And it's a heavy lift, and it's a blazing hot iron. So I'd rather do it right than rush it. But I really feel like we get the right team. a lot of people who were busy this summer, they were canceled. Their stuff was canceled. So there's actually a lot of people available. And I believe in the Vermont artist community, and I want to do it here. I want to see it here. I mean, to perform it in Vergennes, there's probably relatives, great grandkids, whose relatives were at the day that he got out of jail. The day he got out of jail, the Green Mountain Boys almost burned the building down. Like it was a riot. There was almost a riot on the street between federal forces and local forces because the jailer had more arrest warrants in his hand, and he was ready the minute Lyon got out of jail to be like, yep, turn back around. But at the time, there's all these different nuances of the law. At the time, if you were a federal official and you were on your way to work or on your way back from work, you were no longer local jurisdiction. And the logic behind that was, you can imagine if you were in South Carolina and you had to get to Philadelphia, but your brother, who you hate, lives in North Carolina, and you could get arrested on the way to work by a local authority. I don't know why he didn't make it to the vote, So Lyon steps out of jail and his foot touches the ground and he says, I'm off to Philadelphia, which is basically like, sorry, I'm out of your jurisdiction, which probably was a relief to the jailer because the Green Mountain Boys were going to wreck the building. They were going to burn it to the ground. And there was a parade that followed Matthew Lyon from Vergennes, Vermont to the seat of power in Philadelphia that was 12 miles long. And every town, the Vermont flag led the way. Every town getting drunk on cider and original speeches and songs. And he was the Lion of Vermont. When they say, oh, the Lion of the Congress, the Lion of the Senate, it's not Lion. It's Lyon. He was the Lion of the Congress. And forgotten founding father. Should be household name. And when you read his speeches, it's now. It's right now.
It's amazing. Well, we're pretty much all we've got time for. Have we got any last songs that you wanted to showcase before we...
No, we're good. I can play you the hidden track afterward, but
all
not
right.
for the airtime.
Well, I really do wish you the best of luck with this play. I think it's a phenomenal story, and I think Vermont would very much like to see it.
I'd love to see it in Vermont.
Yeah.
I'd love to see it. I can't wait to see it on stage.
If it comes out the next few months, let me know, and I'll
be here.
I'll be front row and center. But thank you so much for coming on this evening.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
I appreciate it. That was Matthew Lyon. Oh, sorry, that was Matthew Lyon. Sorry, the name in my head now. That was John Daly, who wrote the concept album about Matthew Lyon called Spittin' Lion, and is coming out with the play of the same name.
Yeah, Spittin' Lion.
Same name, hopefully in the next few months. This has been The Rocket Shop. I'm not sure who we've got on next week. Bob, you want to tell me? We got Bobby Coe, so come on down for that. I'm not going to be here, obviously. So we've got Molly will be sitting in the interviewer seat. But thank you so much for listening in today. This has been 105.9 at the Radiator, The Rocket Shop. I've been your host, Tom Proctor. It's been great to be back, and we'll catch you next week.